Hello, this is Robert Stearns. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. I really believe that learning is one of the greatest joys in life. And one of the greatest ways to learn is simply to have meaningful conversations, both with those who come from a similar background as yours, as well as those whose background might be very different. So my hope is that as we connect and converse with leaders from all around the world, that we will learn and grow together. If you're new with us, hit the subscribe button and we'll deliver the new episodes to you right away. So wherever you are, on a run, in the car, at the kitchen table with some coffee, welcome to the conversation. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome back. Finally, 2021, we are excited to relaunch The Bishop and the Rabbi. Have you missed our weekly times together? I absolutely have, and it is fantastic to gather together again here at the home of Jerusalem-based Christianity, Jerusalem-centered Christianity. And folks are coming in from all over. I see Mary Gramalia and Bob White and Mama Loretta from Pennsylvania, Carter and Nancy from Alabama. We've got folks signing in from everywhere. So glad to be together as the family. Hey, let's get the word out right now. Do me a favor, hit the share button, everybody. This is your job tonight. Hit the share button and get the word out there. Hey, what about this studio? We did some work over the break and want to give a shout out to Ashley Rawmacher, our production assistant, who's doing such an incredible job. And she and Matt Kabik and others helped pull the next level of the studio together. So we're really excited about that. Hello, Trisha Miller from Boston. Looking forward to being Boston later on this year. Excited about that. Brooklyn is in the house. Hit the share button, everybody, and get the word out. Want to go through a few quick announcements before we welcome our special guest. I'm very excited about tonight's session, but take a minute right now and hit the share button. A few quick announcements for us to go through. We want to let you know about a couple important upcoming things. Number one, in fact, you just actually go ahead and put those up and I'll follow you with those. So absolutely want to invite you to become a monthly partner. We are able to do what we do in Israel and the nations of the world through our monthly partnership. And here are three of the partner levels: $18 a month, $36, $72 a month. If you go to eagleswings.org/partner, it lets you know all of the various levels of benefit that you get for being my partner and for working together with me and the whole Eagles Wings community in our work in the nations of the world. So many of you at the end of 2020 affirmed your partnership with us, and there's still time to launch in and become a partner. Abraham's Bread is sustained our feeding centers in Jerusalem through the great work of our partners. Can I tell you what happened this week? We had a phone call from one of our precious partners, Marie. We love Marie. She has partnered with this ministry for 26 years. 26 years. And I think she just turned 90. If not, she's in her very, very late 80s. I think she's in her early 90s. And she said, I love what this ministry is doing so much. I want to increase my partnership. I thought, Lord, what a blessing. This precious saint who's been with us for so many years, continuing even in these years to sow into supporting Israel. But back to our partners page for just a second. I want to mention our Bishop and the Rabbi mug, this exclusive mug you get at one of those Watchman on the Wall. When you become a Watchman on the Wall partner, you get our Bishop and the Rabbi mug as our free gift. And there's all kinds of cool free gifts and things. And we have a special partners only gathering that I do on Facebook once a quarter, a family meeting, and you get invited to that. Social media, a couple of my social media handles have changed. So please make sure that you are up to date on all social media: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So we've had some minor changes on those. So just look and check and make sure that you're following on all the social media tracks and connecting on all that. Finally, Torah Tuesdays has resumed. We had our first class Tuesday, and it was amazing. We had about 110 people by the end of it from 7 different nations. Isn't that amazing? 7 different nations tuning in, 110 people, and that's just live. This gets downloaded and replayed over and over again. We had them tune in from 7 different nations of the world to study Torah together. Myself and Mark Gerson hosting this. So super exciting. So we're going this coming Tuesday, Torah Tuesdays at 12. We'll be back in studying Genesis. So be a part of that fantastic gathering every week. All right, we are here. We are rocking and rolling. We're in the new studio. My kids are just off camera. They are my live studio audience tonight. Give some shouts and some cheer. There you go. They're doing it. Can you hear them clapping? There they go. That was just the 3 of them. We just got back from a ski trip. They were shredding the hills, and we had a good time. Well, I am so excited to introduce to us tonight my dear friend and one of the hits from last season, Rabbi Ari Lamm. Rabbi Ari, welcome back to Bishop and the Rabbi. So fantastic to have you with us.
Nowhere else I'd rather be than with you and your friends. I love it. You and your community. It's just a wonderful thing.
Well, it's so exciting to see you again, my brother. And you and I, we have a great sense of common heart and common purpose. I first met you through your great work at Yeshiva University, where your esteemed and renowned grandfather of blessed memory was such a force in the Orthodox Jewish community and, of course, the prestigious Yeshiva University. And now, most recently, you've branched out and you are now the executive director, is that the correct title, of B'nai Zion?
Yes, yes.
And B'nai Zion, a wonderful organization. In fact, this piece right over here, it says, in honor of Dr. Robert Stearns, presented by B'nai Zion, the American Israel Friendship Award. And
we're very proud that you're a part of the family. Very proud.
Well, Secretary of State Alexander Haig received that award. I believe Dwight Eisenhower received that award. Many, many other prestigious people. And I was honored several years ago to travel down to, I think, Palm Beach and receive that award.
I believe 3 sitting presidents of the United States have received the award. That's right.
Say that?
I believe 3 sitting presidents of the United States have received the award while they were in office. And you are part of a really illustrious roster. And as far as the faith community is concerned, I rate you much higher than those other 3 incredible honorees.
You are very, very kind, and we're super excited about the launch of the Joshua Project. I've been able to be a part of that. I want everybody to get ready tonight. We're about to go into our Torah study, which is Bo, B-O. That is the Hebrew word that is the name of our parsha tonight. And just turn your Bibles to Exodus chapter 10. But while you're turning there and getting ready, Rabbi, tell us a little bit about the Joshua Project, how people can find it, because what you're doing is groundbreaking. You know, folks, we are in the middle of a 2,000-year miracle. The fact that there is this level of friendship, trust, communication, cooperation between the Christian church, or at least many aspects of the Christian church, and the Jewish community, at least many aspects of the Jewish community, there is this coming together that is unprecedented. It has never happened in 20 centuries, and it's happening right in front of our very eyes. You are a part of it. You tuning in tonight, you hitting the share button, are a part of a 2,000-year miracle, that this rift that occurred between the initial followers of Yeshua, of Jesus, righteous Jews. And of course, you know, I mostly blame Constantine for this, because the Council of Nicaea was this great dividing line. Those of you who have not read James Carroll's eminent work, Constantine's Sword, does an incredible job explaining to us where history took this radical turn. But Rabbi, I've been so blessed to be on the Joshua Project. How can people find out about that?
Sure. You should visit www.thejoshuaproject.com, thejoshuaproject.com. I mean, it's wonderful. The Joshua Project is a community dedicated to rejuvenating American civic and social life through engaging the ideas and values of the Bible and bringing together the natural friends and allies from these different faith communities that, as you said, Bishop, have been pulled apart for so long, and who at this unprecedented moment in history, this marvelous, miraculous moment in history, are finally given the freedom to discover our natural bonds and our natural avenues of friendship. And it's a remarkable time. So at the Joshua Project, you're going to find compassionate, fun, inspiring content that's going to guide people to cultivate civic virtue, take concrete steps to change your lives for the better. And we named it after the biblical leader Joshua, actually, the successor of Moses, whose job it was to take the Israelites, who just spent a very long time being literally lost in a desert, and make them believe that through the power of biblical virtue and values, they could rebuild themselves, their families, and their nation into something great and good. And so if Moses was a founder, Joshua was a refounder. And, the American Republic is in urgent need of a refounding. And like our namesake, we believe the greatest source for national and spiritual healing can be found in the Bible. And Americans of all sorts have always turned to the Hebrew Bible in particular for inspiration on matters small and large, personal and national. And through the Joshua Project's rich, supportive, exciting community, we're going to do so once again. So I hope you'll all check it out.
Well, doesn't every generation have the responsibility to rediscover, replant, regenerate, a vibrant faith? Faith is not something that's static or archaic. It's something that is absolutely living and necessary. So incredibly excited about the work of the Joshua Project. So, Rabbi, take us into the Parsha tonight. The name of the Parsha is Bo, and it is Exodus chapter 10. Take us into this study and give us some of the main themes of what's happening here in this Parsha.
Sure. So in Parshas Bo, you literally are encountering the most famous, well-known, influential story in the history of human civilization, the story of the Exodus. And I think people are familiar, most humans, if you've seen, The Prince of Egypt, or you've heard Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, right? You're familiar with the broad strokes narrative. Their Israelites are enslaved in Egypt, and then they're brought out through God's messenger Moses. And but if you actually dig into the details, there's so much richness to be found just beneath the surface of the soil. So, for example, you have these extraordinary confrontations between Moses and Pharaoh. You have the command to the Jewish people. Let me even rephrase. You have this command, or you have this process by which these 12 tribes, who are united by bonds of brotherhood and common experience, but who only have this relatively loose affiliation, are actually forged into a nation before our eyes. It is actually the first time in human civilization that we are able to witness this process by which a group of disparate individuals and families are forged by the crucible of history and faith into a nation. And then you have the first great project that this nation is tasked to work on together, and that is the Paschal sacrifice, the Passover sacrifice, the lamb or the goat that these tribes, these children of Israel, are asked to consecrate. And it's actually quite a remarkable story. And then you have sort of the plague of the firstborn. The 10 plagues come to an end, and the Israelites are on their way out of Egypt.
So I want to pick the story up there, and I have to pause and greet Pastor Paul Lanier, who's joined us tonight, one of the great pastors in our nation. He's chairman of the board of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, and I had the privilege of bringing his daughter with us to Israel years ago. So Pastor Paul Francis Lanier, we bless you, man of God. So it's such an honor to have you studying the Word of God with us tonight. So I want to bring this to a phrase, Rabbi Lamm, because I think it's so crucial for us. because we're dealing with this concept in our world today of freedom. We're dealing with this concept of liberty and, my rights, my individual rights. I have the right to do this. I have the right to my own pronouns. I have the right to identify with whatever I want to identify with. We have this kind of unbelievable, never before press for my individual rights, to the point that I have a right to invent language and reinvent language and reimagine language and all of these things. But I want us to look at what the Israelites were really going for here, because it's in verse 3. Exodus chapter 10, verse 3. Here is what God says. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they may worship me." And I think this is a crucial understanding for us right now, that the exodus out of Egypt was, yes, an exodus from slavery, but it was also an exodus into covenantal peoplehood. It was an exodus into the formation of a nation whose national identity would be centered in that they were a nation who knew how to encounter God, to receive revelation from the Mount. And this is, of course, the Sinai moment that they're about to come to in a few chapters from now. And they're to steward these laws of God, and in some ways to become the conscience of humanity. God is looking to find, Hashem is looking to find a vehicle into whom he can entrust his revelation, for that revelation to become the Or HaGoyim. So, Rabbi, when we talk about freedom from slavery, freedom from mindsets, freedom from oppressive systems, freedom from past problems that we've had or past toxic relationships, freedom shouldn't only be freedom from something, it should also be freedom into something. Am I right?
Absolutely. I think you can almost see emerging in the West today, and in America in particular, really two factions or two camps. There's one that understands correctly that America protects religious liberty, but then there's another faction that I think takes an extra virtuous step in understanding that it is also religion that protects American liberty. Because after all,
Rabbi,
I mean,
say that again. You need to say that again. You need to
sure,
say that
sure.
whole thing again, and then somebody needs to tweet it. Somebody sneeze, because you're sneezing on the truth. That is it right there. Say that again, Rabbi, and help those comments keep coming up, because they're not scrolling for me. Say the whole
Yes,
thing, Rabbi. Go.
yes, I know there are, and this is critical. I just saw an article today. I can't remember what the publication, but it was complaining that at the inauguration there was a poem, and it was nice that it was nice that it endorsed religious liberty, but it still had Bible verses in it. How can we have biblical language and prayer at a national moment in American life? And it betrays to me such a misunderstanding of the American project. And as I said, there are two camps in American life nowadays, as I see it. We are distracted by right and left, Republican and Democrat. There really are two camps. There is a camp that understands and recognizes that that America protects religious liberty. But there is another camp that I think takes the extra step in correctly understanding that it is also religion that protects American liberty. And that is absolutely critical. Now, when you think about one of the most remarkable elements of the Exodus story, Bishop, you hit it on the head. Israelite freedom is not only freedom from slavery, which it is, but it is also it's freedom that is only consecrated, that is only consummated by a sense of purpose and destiny. And in that respect, you can think of what worth is a nation, of what worth is a people. Well, on the one hand, you can say, don't put your trust in princes. You can find all sorts of material throughout the Bible that can support the view that there is something rotten, idolatrous in the idea of a nation and the idea of a people, and yet at the same time you find all of this, you find all of these stories and narratives that seem to celebrate the idea of nationhood, the very idea of the not just the Jewish people, not just the Israelites. There is a sense of there being 70 nations, all of whom have their own integrity. And Micah, of course, says that in the end of days.
Yeah, and the scripture affirms that God sets boundaries of nations and peoplehood, etc.
That's right. Absolutely. When God in Deuteronomy, when God set the boundaries of the nations, absolutely. And so how do you reconcile these two things? The answer is clear. Nationhood on its own, just as a mere convenient mechanism for expressing politics or for gathering human beings together for any mundane purpose, is at best a waste of time. At worst, it's idolatry. But when you gather a people together and you consecrate a nation to a higher purpose, to a destiny that's founded in its sense of history and its experience and its stories and its founding values, then you have something that is worthy in the eyes of God. And so, I think what the reason the Exodus story is so critical for us today is because it pushes us, it compels us to understand and to take responsibility for, if you live in America, for pushing our history forward towards virtuous purpose, or if you live in another nation, pushing your nation forward towards virtuous purpose, because it is only in so doing that you can justify and in fact elevate the idea of nationhood. So I think that's the key lesson of the Exodus story. Absolutely.
All right, Rabbi, I want to go to a whole different theme, and if my tech team, we're getting several comments that my audio is low. I don't know if we can do anything about that, but I'll try to talk louder. So I'm sorry that my audio is low, but the tech team is working on it. I'll shout for those in the back. Rabbi, I want to go on to a whole different subject here for a moment. And I hope that I'm accurate, Rabbi, because I can't find it here. So if I'm wrong, Rabbi, just stop me and we'll do this in a different session. But in my notes that are from Chabad, no less, it says here that God commands the first mitzvah, the first commandment to the Jewish people is to establish the lunar calendar. Is this accurate, Rabbi?
Yes, it's the very beginning of Exodus chapter 12.
Okay, so all right, so it is in the midst of this. So it's Exodus chapter 12. Now, folks, I want to say a couple things. Let's just thank you, Sonia. Sonia could hear me shout in Orchard Park. All right. A couple things, folks. If you're just tuning in, welcome back to Bishop and the Rabbi. Hit the share button, everybody. This is your one job tonight. Hit that share button and get the word out for us. Also, join us for Torah Tuesdays coming up. We've restarted every Tuesday at noon. Mark Gerson is taking us through Torah Tuesdays. Become our partner, folks. It is only our partnership together that accomplishes the work of Eagle's Wings. If you believe this, if this encourages you, folks, we've been here for close to 30 years at the front of Jewish-Christian dialogue and relationship, standing with Israel, standing with the Jewish people. We cannot do this alone. Become a partner tonight. Go to the website, eagleswings.org/partner. Let me know you're standing with us. We've got all kinds of thank you gifts and special things that you're invited to. We want you to be a part of this global movement of Jerusalem-based Christianity. All right, now, Rabbi, this is for the Eagles Wings folks who have known me for a while and who've walked with me for a while. You know, there's a part of me, Rabbi, that says if I ever converted to Judaism, I'd become a Breslauer Jew. Okay, because the Breslavers, I love the Breslavers, man. They're the charismatics of Judaism. They dance, they sing, they shout, they have a good old time. But for the Eagles Wings family, Exodus chapter 12 and the connection of, think of this, everybody, the first commandment God gives the Jewish people is celebrate the new moon. Now, for the Eagle's Wings tribe, you remember the prophetic encounter that I had over 20 years ago. I'm not going to start singing right now, but if you know what I would start singing, type it in, because some of you have been following me a long time. And I had this unbelievable, it really was not a dream, it was really an encounter. And it dealt completely with the moon. And I didn't understand it for years after year after year. I said, God, what was this thing? Why? That's it, Kay Harris. Kay Harris gets a prize. Kay, I'm going to send you, Matthew Kabik came in second. Kay, I hope you're a partner. I don't know if you are or not. But Kay, we're going to send you a Bishop and the Rabbi mug. All right. And Rabbi Lamm, by the way, Ashley, starting tonight for 2021, every guest we're going to send, every rabbi. So this week we're getting this in the mail to you, Rabbi. You're going to get your Bishop and the Rabbi mug.
If I can, I really just, as I know I'm a guest here, I will say to your audience, I have been so, I'll tell you, my background is in early Judaism and early Christianity. I have met so many folks in the community that you all are a part of. I have never met somebody as astounding as Bishop Stearns. I've never met someone as astounding as Bishop Stearns. You are so fortunate to be a part of this community, and I can only urge you to do what you can to be there for him and his cause, because it is, when I think back at ancestors of mine, and how they would have regarded every single person on this call, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, my ancestors would have regarded them with fear. They would have regarded, or if at fear at best, if not like utter terror. The fact that in this day, it is possible for us to be on this call together as friends and as natural allies is astonishing. It is absolutely astonishing. So I urge you to be a part of this moment in history.
Rabbi, I'm reaching out and hugging you right there. Thank you, Rabbi. So, Rabbi, and I'll explain the whole story to you sometime, but I had, we believe that God still speaks in dreams, and God, we're from a branch of Christianity that believes that the Holy Spirit, the part of the expression of God that gives wisdom and gives insight, that he can speak to us through dreams and through inspiration. And I had this profound encounter that I didn't understand 20 years ago, but it was all about the moon. And I said, what is God trying to tell me about the moon? And if you'd asked me, I didn't understand that not the Jews, that the Bible has a lunar calendar. And this is what I've tried to teach our people. The lunar calendar is not the Jewish calendar, it's the biblical calendar. In other words, Hashem says, this is my time clock. This is how I keep the clock of the universe running. I run it through the lunar calendar. So talk to us about Rosh Chodesh, the sanctifying of the new moon, because that is a part of this Parsha, and it's a special part of our spiritual heritage, because we believe that what's happening in this moment, listen to me, family, is that we are coming into alignment. We're coming into alignment with Jerusalem. Jerusalem is our spiritual mother. Rome is not our spiritual mother. Jerusalem is our spiritual mother. The soil of Israel is our spiritual root system. The Jewish people are our elder brothers and sisters, and we are coming into alignment with the faith of Jesus. Jesus would have practiced and understood the New Moon Festival. So, Rabbi, talk to us about this, because it's very special for our faith community.
Sure. I'll say actually a quick word, actually, as by way of prologue about prophetic experience. You often hear, when people sort of set up this dichotomy between science and religion. I think often in the contemporary culture, there's this assumption that religion sort of has the higher burden of proof to clear. as if science offers a much more intuitive explanation of the human condition, and it is in fact religion that has the higher bar to clear. I mean, it seems to me such an insane perspective. Anyone who has spent more than 5 minutes on planet Earth knows how weird, how strange and odd human experience is. We just live in a weird place. Think about how crazy this life is. Religion just has such a much more intuitive and obvious account of the human experience, and so it just seems to me that it seems to me such a silly thing to dismiss the idea of encounters of that nature. In any event, the new moon. One thing that's so critical, and I actually speak to this is actually something that even sort of Jewish people who grew up with a background, with a Jewish educational background, often kind of don't stop to think, even though they live it in their lives. And that is, the Jewish calendar is not only lunar, it's lunisolar. What do I mean? It's actually in this week's parsha, namely in Exodus 12. God makes clear that the Passover holiday has to be in Hebrew b'chodesh ha'aviv, in the springtime. Let me see if I can pull it up in my verse here. In any event, I can't find it at the moment, but it's in this week's parsha. Passover has to be b'chodesh ha'aviv, in the springtime. Now, spring, as we all know, is the seasons are solar phenomena, and yet at the very beginning of this verse of this chapter of Exodus chapter 12, God does, as you said, Bishop, command that the months be established by the lunar calendar, by the lunar cycle. Now, why? If you're gonna use a solar calendar, use a solar calendar. Or if you're gonna use a lunar calendar, use a lunar calendar. For example, and we know pure lunar calendars work. Just look at the Muslim tradition. So Ramadan can occur at any time of year because they use a lunar calendar. It doesn't have to be tagged to the seasons. And yet, in the biblical calendar, the holidays and observances and holy days and feast days are tied both to the solar time of year, to the seasonal year, and to the lunar months. Why is that? And the answer is clear. Because in order to make those two things sync up, it's actually impossible scientifically to make those two things sync up. You can't. There's no sort of easy mathematical calendar that simply marches along and syncs up the lunar and solar cycles. In order to actually make those two things come into contact with each other, you have to have what we would call a leap year, or you have to have in the Jewish calendar today what would be called an intercalation, which means that every couple of years in the Jewish calendar, we actually add an extra month to the calendar. So right. The month Adar, we actually do
Adar, right? Isn't it the month of Adar? You do Adar 1 and Adar 2?
That's right. We do Adar twice. Why? The lesson is that God is telling us in order to experience me, in order to commune with me in sacred time, which is how we conceive of all of the holidays, it's not just something that happens automatically. An encounter with the Almighty doesn't just happen mathematically, scientifically. It doesn't just occur. It actually requires human participation and action. So the holidays would actually never occur at the right time without a tribunal of Jews, of learned Jews, for example, in the Jewish tradition, without what's called a Beit Din, a religious court of sages actually intervening and saying, now is the time when the holiday takes place. We know that it takes place because we synced it up with the solar calendar. We may have needed to add a month. We may have needed to add a day here to do this. Sacred time requires human participation. And that's not only true for holidays. It's not only true
Rabbi, folks, I hope you're listening. I hope you're getting this. I hope you're hearing and getting this, because you're saying, Rabbi, it requires human participation. But what you're saying, even though you didn't say it explicitly, implicitly you're saying it requires communal participation.
Absolutely.
Because the Beit Din was a community that had to come together. Beit Din, Dayan, judge, Daniel, Hashem is my judge. I named my second son Daniel. Dayan, judge in Hebrew. And so the community of elders, what you're saying is, because you had this seemingly contradictory interposition of the lunar calendar on one hand, and yet the prohibition or the directive that the Pesach had to happen in the spring. So you had to adjust this. What does this mean? This means that we as a community have to constantly be in dialogue. We have to constantly be in communication with each other. We have to be evaluating and talking together, and as a community, come to meet with God together. And beloved, this is so important, and this is such a strength of the Jewish people, and something that I'm praying that we as Jerusalem-based Christians will capture. And your first step, listen to me, Christian, your first step will be when you begin honoring the Sabbath. When you begin honoring the Shabbat, when you start on Friday night lighting the Shabbat candles, praying the Shabbat prayers, and honoring the 10 commandments. Folks, we are not talking about coming back under the law. We are not talking about saying that the 613 mitzvot of Jews are incumbent upon Christians. That is nothing that we're saying, nor are we saying that the law is salvific. We are not making a soteriological declaration here. What we are saying is that sacred time goes to the very character and manifestation of God in the earth. Shabbat goes back to Bereshit. It goes back to Genesis, the very earliest manifestation of God. God rested. If God rested and sanctified one day in 7, what makes you think you don't have to do it? And then the second question for us becomes, and I say this with love and respect to all of my Christian brothers and sisters, Jose Diaz, we love you. God bless you, my brother Jose. So good to have you on here. Rabbi Lamm, you should have Jose on your Joshua podcast sometime.
Fantastic.
Folks, the question becomes, who allowed us to decide that Sunday was our Sabbath? Someone show me where God gave us authority to change the times and the seasons that came down from Sinai and that were inherent within the created order since Genesis. Beloved, God runs his world on a time clock, and that time clock is the lunar time clock, and weekly it manifests in Shabbat. And if I'm getting preachy here, Peter Eckenrode, I love you. Peter Eckenrode, you just made my whole week. Guys, if you don't know Peter Eckenrode, he is my spiritual son. He was with me in the earliest days of Eagle's Wings. Peter, I love you. I think about you all the time. Let's be in touch soon. Beloved, what is happening in the earth right now is not just a nice friendship or partnership between Christians and Jews. What is happening is that millions of Christians around the world are rediscovering the faith of Jesus. If you want to walk with Jesus, if you want Jesus in your heart, you better learn to love God and worship God and pray to God and understand God like he did. And by the way, like Peter did, and like Paul did, and like all of the early believers did. And I'm not saying that that is necessary for your salvation. I'm not saying, beloved, I love bacon cheeseburgers, and I'm not giving them up for nobody. I'm not talking about Christians coming under the law. I'm talking about the fact that there is an amazing amount of depth and understanding that we have when we begin to walk in the place of understanding the faith of Jesus. Peter, that's amazing about Pastor Bill Fritzke. All right, Rabbi, you got me all Pentecostal tonight. You got me all excited. Rabbi Lamm, you've got the last word. We've got about 2.5 minutes left. Take it, summarize this tonight for us, bring us home to some truth, and then I'll just give a final wrap up. But take the last 2 minutes, Rabbi, and take it.
Sure. Well, first of all, you mentioned my podcast. You should all give it a look. It's called Good Faith Effort. You can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts. It's the podcast where we show how the values and virtue of the Bible can actually impact every single area of our lives, from pop culture to psychology to politics and beyond. We talk to wonderful people, and I certainly would love to have Jose Diaz on the podcast. Of course, I certainly would love to. Why? If I could summarize, the two ideas that we talked about actually this evening are intimately connected. The importance of not only freedom from something, but freedom to do something sacred. The idea of sacred time requiring human participation. If I could actually, Bishop, I'd like to tell a very quick story.
Please.
You may have heard me tell it, but you may not have. There was a man, this is, you mentioned the Breslover Hasidim before. The founder of the Hasidic movement was known as Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Israel of the good name. He's known in usually by the acronym, the Besht, the acronym of Baal Shem Tov, the Besht. So there are lots of wonderful stories told about the Besht. My favorite one is the one I'm about to tell, because it's one of the few that could certainly have happened. He's wonderful. It's wonderful. So there was a fellow who wanted, a rather wealthy fellow, well-to-do fellow, who lived in Eastern Europe, who lived near the Besht, who wanted to encounter Elijah the prophet. Now, there is a tradition in the Jewish faith that at particular moments of peril, or for particularly righteous people, there's this understanding that Jews every now and then will encounter Elijah the prophet. Will encounter Elijah usually in disguise, usually embodied in somebody else, but will encounter Elijah the prophet. It's considered an extraordinary honor and a source of inspiration. So this man wanted to encounter Elijah the prophet. And so he had heard that the Besht had several such encounters, and so he traveled to meet the Besht to ask him, how might I encounter Elijah? He met with the Besht, and the Besht considered him and pulled on his beard. And finally, with a look of deep concentration, said to the man, I'll tell you what, go to the marketplace, buy enough food for yourself and several other people to eat a wholesome meal, a festive meal, then travel to the outskirts of town to such and such a place, and you'll see a home there. Knock on the door, tell them that you're there for a meal, and there you will encounter Elijah. So he said, this is great. So he goes to the market, he buys his food, he goes to the outskirts of town, and when he gets to the house that the Besht had indicated, he sees a ramshackle hut with grime lining the doorways, shutters hanging by a rusty nail. And he's perplexed, but there was no doubt that this was the house that the Besht had indicated, and so he knocks on the door. The door is opened by a disheveled young woman who's a mother of several raggedy-looking children who are clearly malnourished. And for a moment, he's stunned into awkward silence. But then he remembers what the Besht had told him, and he says, I'm here for a meal. The woman invites him in. He helps set the table. He prepares the meal, all the while looking for Elijah to appear. And nothing happens. Nobody appears. So perturbed and disturbed, he leaves the house, and he returns to the Besht, and he says, look, I did what you said, and nothing happened. He says, must have been some mistake. Do the same thing tomorrow night. Go back, and you'll encounter Elijah the prophet. So he does the same thing, goes to the market, goes to the house, he gets in, and he brings the meal, sets the table, they have a meal with the poor family. Nothing happens. He does the same thing for 5 more nights, an entire week. On the 5th night, he gets to the house with all of the food, and he's about to knock on the door, and then he says, you know what? I feel like I'm being scammed by the Besht. I don't know what's going on here, but he must be a charlatan. And so he turns on his heel and is about to go and give the Besht a piece of his mind when for a moment, he hears a noise from behind the door. And it's the voice of the youngest daughter in the house. And she's crying. And she says, Mommy, I'm so hungry. And her mother says, don't worry. There'll be food tonight. And she says, and the young daughter says, how do you know? And she says, because the Besht promised us that just like last night and the night before and the night before that, Elijah the prophet will show up at our door and announce that he has food for us and he will dine with us. So often, as you said earlier, Bishop, in a world and in a culture where we're told that all that matters is us and our own edification, we're so often looking for everybody else to be our Elijah the prophet. We're so looking for our encounter. But true freedom, true liberty means the freedom and the liberty to be the Elijah for somebody else. And so I ask you tonight, consider, as we move forward as faith communities, as a nation, as a people, how can you be that Elijah the prophet for somebody else? And
So
by the way,
powerful.
and I will add, tying together the final theme, sacred time truly does require human participation, but not just all human participation. I mean, not only all human participation, not only communal participation, as you taught, Bishop, as you so rightly taught. It requires your participation. You have to participate. That's the lesson of Parshas Bo. That's the lesson of the Besht. And I hope that's the lesson we all take into the coming days and months together.
Well, my soul feels like it's had a meal. This is just beautiful. I've missed everybody so much. I've missed our weekly studies. It is so good to be back together. Daniela Hoffman, the wonderful leader of Eagles Wings Germany, thank you for all you do. Daniela, leading our German office. Such a great group on with us tonight. If you haven't yet hit the share button.
I see Mayuai Reeves, my friend, my wonderful friend Mayuai Reeves, who I know is part of your community as well.
Absolutely. And folks, if you haven't yet, you've still got time to hit the share button and share this incredible journey with all of us. We are back now weekly with Torah Tuesdays and weekly with Bishop and the Rabbi. And I want all of you to find Rabbi Ari Lamm, Lamm. Find him on your social media and follow the Joshua Project and then also his personal podcast. He is one of the young lions of Judah, one of the young leaders of the Jewish people in this generation. He's carrying the mantle of his family with such incredible decorum and honor. And Rabbi, it's been a beautiful night. My heart is full, and it's fantastic to see you again. And I know that we've got great work to do together. And so may you go from strength to strength. May all of us in this new season, it's a new year. Many things are new, and we're going to move forward in faith together. Please, God, all of us this year will get to Jerusalem at some point. We miss Jerusalem terribly, and we want to get to Jerusalem. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
God bless you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you soon. And remember, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.